Good morning, everybody. I'm going to open the meeting for August 6, 2025. My name is Tess Harris. I'm the Staff Hearing Officer, and this is the Staff Hearing Officer meeting. We have two items today. Before we get to those, I wanted to note that we do not have any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or any addition of ex-agenda items. Also, announcements and appeals. I do not have any announcements or appeals to note today. And so we'll move on with comments from members of the public on items that are not on the agenda today. So a general public comment. If any members of the public in the room wish to speak, please come up to the podium.
Okay, I do not see anyone in the room with raised hands or anyone on Zoom for this for a general comment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Gu. Okay, so now we will open up item A. Let's move to. So item A is at 317 West Alomar Avenue. The 3,000, I'll read the project description. The 3,360 square foot site is currently developed with a 1,105 square foot two-story residence with a legal non-conforming uncovered parking space in the remaining front yard. The project consists of the construction of a 306 square foot accessory dwelling unit above a 306 square foot covered patio area. The proposal also includes the as-built addition of a 48 square foot storage space, expansion of the roof deck, and the reduction of the driveway gate to 42 inches. And the discretionary applications required at this hearing under the purview of the staff hearing officer are two interior setback modifications to allow a covered patio to encroach into the required 6-foot northerly and easterly interior setbacks, and an open yard modification to allow less than the required 800 square feet of open yard. Then the project qualifies for an exemption from environmental review under sections 15303 and 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. And so with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Broadison to do a staff presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for the introduction. Kelly Broadison with Community Development Department. Yes, this project is located at 317 West Alomar. This slide shows kind of a aerial view of the street and the area of the city. It's in the Oak Park neighborhood, and it's southwest of De La Vina Street. And you can see it's just a small kind of triangular lot on West Alomar, and it's bordered between Bath Street and an alley, and then further south is Castillo Street. This is a slide showing the view of the house that's on site. Again, you can see that there's an alley. The subject building sits right up on the alley and also has frontage on West Alomar Avenue. This is the existing site plan. Again, you can see that the building is on the corner of an alley and Alomar Street, Alomar Avenue. And you can see there that the way the building is situated, there's open space in the northern corner of the lot. And the project also has one non-conforming uncovered parking spot that you can see here in the front on Alomar. And this is the proposed project. So the applicant is proposing a accessory dwelling unit above a covered patio. This is where it gets a little bit intricate. So, let's see. So the ordinance says that regarding the interior setback modifications, the ordinance says that setbacks are intended to provide open space, visibility and air between buildings, and also establish a consistent development pattern. Residential uses in this zone, which is the RM zone, require a 6-foot interior setback. However, accessory dwelling units are allowed a 4-foot interior setback. The primary residence is already non-conforming to the easterly 6-foot setback along this side. And also, it fronts right up against the alley with a 0 setback. So while the city and state regulations support development of ADUs in part by allowing these reduced setback standards, other structures do not qualify to those reduced setbacks. So it does that, those reductions don't extend to non-essential additions like decks or carports or storage structures. And those types of accessory elements, they require the normal setbacks, which would be 6 feet. So although the ADU is proposed to be constructed above a covered patio, the covered patio does not receive the benefit of the reduced setbacks. The applicant really wishes to have a covered patio, and again, the ADU, it's kind of repetitive, does get a 4-foot setback, but the covered patio does not. So because the ADU is set above the covered patio, the covered patio triggers requirements for 2 interior setback modifications. Let's see. Staff believes that the request to construct the ADU above a covered patio is supportable because, as you can see by the aerial photo and the site plan, this lot is highly constrained. It's really small. It's almost 3,000 square feet. It's less than 4,000 square feet in size. It's also a triangular shaped lot, which is an irregular shaped lot. It's further constrained with front setbacks along Alomar and the frontage on the public alley. And the residence is already nonconforming to the front and easterly setbacks. And the ADU follows the line of the existing residence, which will promote uniformity of development with the existing buildings on site. Again, the ADU is allowed to be 4 feet away from the property line. It was exempt from design review because it is no taller than the existing building, and windows that are in the setback are allowed to be in the setback as long as they are 45 inches above the finished floor, which these are. So that is one of the things that was put into the ADU ordinance to account for neighborhood privacy. So therefore, the easterly and northerly interior setback modifications are consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance, and staff finds that they're necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot and prevent unreasonable hardship due to the physical characteristics of the site. Regarding the open yard modification, again, this slide shows that the accessory dwelling unit will go in the area of the existing non-conforming open yard. Open yards are also intended to promote desirable living conditions for the people that live on the property. Parcels less than 5,000 square feet are required to have only 800 square feet of open yard, with minimum dimensions of 20 by 20. They must be, required open yards must be located on the ground and must be open from the ground up. So, open yard is not required for the ADU, however, it is required for the existing residents on site. So the lot is already non-conforming to open yard. So if I look at this slide here, this is the existing site plan. It shows the existing open yard here. There's no other location to place the accessory dwelling unit. So again, if they were just proposing an ADU, this would not trigger an open yard mod because you're allowed to put your ADU in the open yard. But because the ADU is proposed over a covered patio, the covered patio, again, does not benefit from the reduced standards that the ADU does. Because this covered patio is proposed in the area of the already non-conforming open yard, it does not benefit from the reduced open yard, and therefore the lot must comply with the 800 square feet. Designing the ADU on the ground level rather than elevated would be a conforming option, but the applicants really wanted to have a covered patio where they could use that area as open space on their property. The covered patio still allows for enjoyment of outdoor open yard, and even though it does not conform to the open standards, it provides the benefit of being used as such. And there are also other outdoor living spaces on the site, such as the other areas in the front yard here and the deck. The proposed ADU is in line with the purpose of the ordinance, which is to expand opportunities in the city to create additional housing to suit the spectrum of individual lifestyles and space needs, allow for more efficient use of housing stock and public infrastructure, and provide a range of housing opportunities. Staff has reviewed the proposal and supports the open yard modification, again, because the property is highly constrained. It's extremely small lot, it's an irregular shape, and it's also constrained with a front setback on Alomar and frontage on a public alley. Again, the property is already non-conforming to open yard, and there's no alternate location to place the ADU. The only thing triggering the open yard mod is the fact that they're proposing it above a covered patio. Also, the applicant is proposing two 42-inch permanent planters in order to prevent the covered patio to be used for parking, which is a condition of approval and has been added at the rear of the staff report. At the end of the staff report. So therefore, the modification can be found consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and is necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot and prevent unreasonable hardship due to the physical characters of the site. Staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the project, making the findings in the staff report and subject to the condition of approval that the covered patio be designed to be inaccessible to vehicles with two 42-inch tall permanent planters in front of the patio. And that will be a condition of approval and will be verified when the project comes through for a building permit. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you, Ms. Broadison. Would the applicant, Mr. Johnson, like to come up and provide any further discussion?
Supports the project, which we're happy for. And I did just want to mention that the open yard space is supposed to be 800 feet for a lot less than 5,000 square feet. But there is an existing open yard that's designated, and it's only 405 square feet. And so by moving it, we're not only moving it and allowing the ADU to be built, but we're also increasing the open yard to 485. So it's a slight improvement. And as Kelly said, the open or covered patio doesn't qualify technically as open yard, but it's still open space. And the reason the patio is needed is there's no shaded space on the site. There's a nice garden with lots of trees and shrubs and so on, and there's a roof deck on the first story, but nowhere to sit in the yard and enjoy it, from a shaded location. But other than that, I really don't have anything else to add.
Great, thank you very much. So I've got a couple questions, either for staff or the applicant. So one of my questions was around, first I'll just note that I was at the site yesterday. I did a site visit. I know I wasn't able to connect with the property owner, which I totally understand. But just kind of walked around the area. I'm also very familiar with the area. I pass it every day. So I recognize the constraints of this lot, and just sort of the irregular shape and the small size in general. I did have a question around just kind of construction impacts, which I know will be addressed further when we get into the building permit, but how the applicant intends to intends to deal with construction on the street, on Alomar, and with that constrained area, and just wanting to make sure that the applicant is aware of that challenge because of the area. And so really just putting that into your heads right now to be thinking about before you get to the building permit. I did have a question about the covered patio, so how does the applicant, I assume that with the gate that there's that one parking space when you enter through the gate, and then the covered patio, you had mentioned, Mr. Johnston, that it would be sort of a shaded space for the applicant to enjoy their outdoor environment. Is that correct? Okay, great. That is helpful. And then Ms. Broadison, you had talked about the windows for the accessory dwelling unit, and I just wanted to confirm that they meet the privacy requirements for ADUs.
Yes, Ms. Harris, that is correct.
Great, thank you. And then I had another question just about we did receive 2 public comments for this item. And I had a question for the applicant on whether they have communicated with their neighbors. I know there's one of the lots adjacent to them and is, I believe, currently vacant. And then there's the lot either in front or behind, how you look at it. So just wanted to understand if you guys have had those kinds of conversations with your neighbors, or if they are aware that the project is moving, that an application has been submitted.
You know, as an architect, I have not gone and canvassed neighbors and notified
Okay.
them of things. I know that the owner, Terry, who's sitting here, has had a conversation or two with some neighbors, but not a real active.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, it's just helpful to sort of understand, especially given one of the public comments, just sort of where conversations are. Really, that being said, I don't have that many, really any other questions for the site. I do think the project is suitable for the area. I think especially given the zone to allow multi-unit housing, and this would do exactly that by allowing another unit onto the site, and that's something that's definitely needed in the city overall. So I understand the desire for the accessory dwelling unit, and really you're here today because of the covered patio and that component as being a part of the ADU build. What I did, just before I go ahead and make the findings for approval, I did want to, and open it for public comment before that. I did want to ask a question about the condition of approval for the applicant. And just, have you read the condition of approval? Is that something that you are comfortable with as the applicant?
Yes, we read them.
Okay, great. So now I will open it up for public comment for item A.
Okay. Upon not seeing any raised hands in the room or any raised hands on Zoom, I do not have any public comment other than what was announced with the correspondence received. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Koo. So going back to my deliberation, so one of the things, just again, before I make the findings, was around that condition of approval. I actually would like to strike the condition of approval and take it off the project. What I would request instead is that the applicant put a note on the plans indicating that the covered patio is a covered patio and is not intended to be used as a carport. But the reason for that is I have some concerns about putting a planter underneath a covered space, and just wanting to make sure that you're able to use that space in the way that you see fit, and be able to. You can certainly put a planter out there if you want, but I don't want to put that requirement on this project. I think with that note on the building permit, that should be sufficient to indicate that it is not intended to be used as a carport. Is that something that the applicant is comfortable with?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so with that, I will go ahead and make the findings for this project. The first finding is around environmental review. The project does qualify for an exemption under sections 15303 and 15305. It's a minor alteration, and it's also construction of a small structure. This is for the California Environmental Quality Act. And then I'll make the second finding B, in the staff report for the 2 interior setback modifications. The project is consistent with the purpose of the residential multi-unit zone. Again, building that accessory dwelling unit really fits the character of the neighborhood, and I think is appropriate for the site. I think you've also done, as the applicant, a really great job in trying to figure out how to build an accessory dwelling unit. It certainly isn't, is a modest size ADU, but I think is appropriate for the size of the lot, and also for that covered patio area. So just appreciate that effort to find find a way to get an additional unit on the site while really understanding the area. So the interior setback modifications are an appropriate improvement. The site's highly constrained due to the small lot size. So I will make the finding that the 2 interior setback modifications are consistent with the zoning ordinance. And then the same with the open yard modification finding. It's intended to provide areas for a variety of multi-unit housing types. As you mentioned, Mr. Johnston, the site already is non-conforming to the open yard requirements because it's highly constrained and because of the smaller lot size and irregular shape with the public alleyway and Alamar abutting the site. So because it's not really changing that non-conforming status, it's really not making it worse. As you had mentioned, it's actually improving it to a degree. I will go ahead and make that finding that the open yard modification is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. And then again, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm going to strike the condition of approval. I fully recognize why staff had included it and wanting to be sometimes that is the case where staff is wanting to make sure that we are really looking at the property and making sure that the intent of use remains and that it's not converted. But I think that a more appropriate way to go about this would be that comment that's included on the building permit plans. So with that, I will go ahead and approve the project. The project has a 10-day appeal process. And my decision is appealable to the Planning Commission if it's received within 10 calendar days. And also, any member of the Planning Commission could suspend my decision within the same 10 calendar day timeframe should they see fit. So with that, I'll go ahead and thank the applicant, thank staff for item A, and we will move on to item B. All right, give me one moment as we switch over to item B. Okay, I will go ahead and open item B, which is for 1260 Northridge Road. And I'll go ahead and read the project description that's in the agenda. The 1.84 acre lot is developed with a 2,599 square foot residence and a 969 square foot attached garage. The proposed project consists of a 1,385 square foot addition to the residence and a 15 square foot addition to the garage. The project also includes exterior changes, removal of trees, new landscape, hardscape, and site improvements. The proposed total of the 4,968 square feet of development is 91% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. And review and approval of a vegetation removal permit is required from the Single Family Design Board. The discretionary application required at this hearing under the purview of the Staff Hearing Officer is a front setback modification along Northridge Road that would allow new floor area to be constructed within the front setback. The project also qualifies for an exemption from environmental review under Section 15301, which is existing facilities of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. So now I will open it to staff to provide a presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Kelly Broadison with Community Development, and thank you for reading the project description. This slide shows kind of an aerial view of where the project site is located. It's in the northernmost area of the city of Santa Barbara, and it's located in the RS1A zone, which for newly subdivided lots would require a minimum of 1 acre per lot. This project was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board on March 10th, and the Design Board had positive comments and forwarded the project to the Staff Hearing Officer. The project, if you look at this, here's a view, a street view of the existing house. And just for context, this portion of the house, this tower element will be demolished, and then they'll be doing some additions here. And if you look at the site plan, you can see this project site is constrained because it used to be part of the county and was annexed into the city. And when it was in the county, there was a when it was annexed into the city, there was a 25-foot street easement here. Then there's also, I think it's a 60-foot wide public right-of-way. So from the center line, it's 30 feet from the center line, which encroaches onto the property. And then from the edge of the right-of-way, there's also an additional 35-foot setback. So basically, the entire house is located within, most of the entire house is located within the front setback. And then from there, it's extremely steep topography, which further constrains development of this lot. So the applicants are requesting a front setback mod. Anything that they do to this, anything they do to this house would trigger a front setback mod. As discussed in the previous project, setbacks are intended to provide a sense of openness, visibility, light and air between buildings, and establish a consistent development pattern. And let's see. Well, I pretty much already described this. The site is developed with single-family residence constructed in the 80s. At the time of the construction, the site was in the county and has been annexed into the city. So, let's see. Because of the 35-foot front setback and also a 15-foot interior setback, the site is considered constrained. Let's see, currently 221 square feet of the existing garage encroaches into the front setback by approximately 18 feet, and a portion of the existing garage will be converted to habitable floor area for the residents, and the additions are proposed for the new garage to accommodate 3 vehicles. The result will be an increased encroachment in the front setback of 32 feet, and approximately 685 square feet of the proposed garage will be within the front setback. Staff believes that the requested front setback encroachment is necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot and prevent an unreasonable hardship. The lot is heavily constrained by steep topography to the north and the added requirement to measure the 35-foot front setback from the back of the 30-foot easement. And the existing structure is already non-conforming, as you can see from the site plan. And the project is generally consistent with the existing patterns of development in that area, because the other sites on that street have similar constraints. So staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the project, making the findings in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation. And we do have the applicant team here to make a presentation also.
Great, thank you, Ms. Brodesson. Yes, I'll have the applicant come up. And if there's anything that you would like to add to what Ms. Brodesson had already communicated, or anything that you would like me to know before I make the decision, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Harris. I'm Shelby Messner-Janke from SEPS Land Use Consulting, representing the project, and I'll just introduce behind me. We do have the owner, Mr. Stephen Locke, here, as well as one of the members of our architecture team. And Ms. Brodesson really, described the situation here. We feel that this is a pretty technical modification because, as you can see, the majority of the existing house is located within the front setback due to the constraints from the city's 25-foot street easement, as well as the 30-foot private road easement, which caused the front setback measurement to be pushed so far into the site, as well as the steep topography. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to drive up there, but as you drive up Northridge Road, it gets very steep very fast. This is, as she mentioned, the northernmost part of the city, and it's a very steep lot. So we feel that it's a pretty technical modification. Again, as Ms. Brodesson mentioned, almost any improvements to the residence would trigger the need for a front setback modification. And I'll just note, we feel it's justified because the because of the constraints, the steep slope, something that was very important to the owners was to retain the open yard that's usable that they have on site. And you'll see on the site plan, that's kind of the shaded area in the rear. That's they have some patio space. It's nice private open yard that they can enjoy. So it was very important to them as they were looking at the design and adding some additions that they were able to retain that space so that they were able to have some usable open yard. Which again, really limited where any additions could be proposed on the site, but due to the steep topography, trying to keep some complying open yard and not pushing too far into the front. And the additions that are proposed, are very modest. It's a small covered entry in the front that it's really already the entry to the residence. Thank you. We're just enclosing it. And a very small 13.5 square foot pop out at the primary bedroom closet at the main level, 15 square foot addition to the garage, and again, with creating a little bit more space in the garage to convert some area to habitable space, and then create enough room for 3 cars is where that comes from. And we feel that it is consistent with the findings for approval. It's, as mentioned, it's located in a single-family zone. The mod is consistent with that as we're not looking to change that use. It'll still be used and continued as a single-family residence and really is consistent development with the neighborhood. They're pretty large homes, and I'll just mention this is one of 7 other homes that are constrained by that city 25-foot easement. So as you drive up and down, there are other homes that are also, I think, located within that area. And as Ms. Broadison mentioned, we also agreed that the modification is necessary to secure an improvement on the lot and prevent an unreasonable hardship due to the really, the constrained nature of this site from various angles from the front and the rear, and will allow the owners to enjoy their home, to create their dream home. So we feel that it's justified. And appreciate your thoughts.
Great, thank you, Ms. Mesner-Janke. Ms. Gu, do we have anybody from the public? Or I'll open it up for public comment. If anybody in the room wishes to speak, you can come on up to the podium.
Okay, having checked the room, there are no raised hands, and upon checking Zoom, there are no raised hands for this item. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Gu. So a couple questions I have, and I think, Ms. Mesner-Janke, you really just sort of answered the main one I had, but just to go a little bit further into it, can you talk about some of the design alternatives that your team looked at when looking at this project?
Certainly. So we did look at other areas on site where additions could be proposed. As I mentioned, retaining open yard was very, very important. So as we looked at going, I'll say, to the southeast of the site, because of the slope, the steep terrain, it's a 68% average slope on site. It just wasn't feasible to go that direction at all. It would be inconsistent with, hillside design policies. And we looked at additions to the northeast, which just really resulted in a reduction to that usable open yard that was more than the owners were comfortable with. Again, we want to have some space that they can use and enjoy their property, take advantage of the lovely views that they have towards the ocean. Again, it really left us with, let's use the space that we have, some minor additions that just, again, happen to already lie in that front setback.
Great, thank you. And then just in terms of grading, our building team will get into this when you go for a building permit, but can you talk a little bit about just the level of grading that would be required for this project?
Yes, and I don't have the exact quantities right in front of me, though I'm sure I can grab them on the plan, but overall, the grading was kept as minimal as possible.
Great.
We're not digging down really far. The footprint is already there. The grade is there. We're not looking to change the grade.
Great. Okay. Well, those are all the questions that I have for this project. I did read the staff report. I also went to the site yesterday, to sort of understand just where the project is. And you have a beautiful, beautiful property. I'll say I didn't even realize that the city boundary went all the way up there. I go past, the general area frequently, but, certainly can understand the desire to keep the open yard area, open space area, because of that nature. I also, just the design, as I know, the Single Family Design Board has looked at, and this not in my purview, but I think it's an excellent design, and I think it'll really be a great change to the overall property, and just seeing improvements in general, even just, around the vegetation side of things and landscaping. And while Ms. Brodesson showed a photo of the site earlier in her presentation, I'll say that that probably was from a little while ago, and it has sort of less vegetation right now. So I think really this project will be an overall improvement, not just to the property, but to the area in general. Regarding the front setback modification, I can understand the desire to make these changes and being constrained with the easement that you have because of the change from county to city and because of where the street lies. And I certainly recognize that the site is constrained because of the steep topography. So, with that, it is understandable that you would want to do these small additions and changes. And also, I presume because you are up a bit in the hill area that, adding that additional garage space, to me makes sense, and wanting to have additional space for vehicles, whether they're your own or guest parking is understood. So with that, I will go ahead and make the findings for approval for the project. So the first one is environmental review, finding A in the staff report on page 5. So the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under section 15301 of the CEQA guidelines, which is existing facilities. It allows for exterior alterations and additions. And then finding B, the front setback modification along Northridge Road. This project is consistent with the residential single-use zone. Really allowing the modification is an appropriate improvement on the lot given the constraints to the site, and given that the project is already non-conforming to the 35-foot front setback. Because it's minor additions and constrained with the 68% slope. The front setback modification is something that I will be making today. So with that, I will go ahead and approve the project. The project is subject to a 10-day appeal period. And so any member of the public can appeal the project. My decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And any member of the Planning Commission could suspend my decision within the same 10 calendar day period, should they see fit. And so with that, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting and thank the applicant for being here, and thank you to staff as well. And the August 6th, 2025 meeting is adjourned.